The dough here, it's about 10% rye, 10% red fife, whole red fife, and a good proportion, about 30% is low protein, so 10% protein white flour, and the remaining, I think 50% is strong red flour, about 13.3% protein. It's now fermented to about 50% rise based on the aliquot jar I used to measure it. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to shape this. The first thing I'm going to do is to use white rice flour and then just lightly flour the banneton. I'm doing this as a Batard, which is my favorite shape for hearth loaves. I'm going to fairly, not too heavily flour this with the rice flour. Get some on the sides. Okay. Keep that because we're still going to need some of that. The next thing I'm going to do, using some bread flour, I'm going to flour the top of this, which is going to end up being the outside of the loaf. So we don't want it to stick on the countertop when we turn this out. I'm also going to use my dough scraper to loosen this from the sides before I turn it out. So I'm putting a little extra along the edges so when the dough scraper goes in, it doesn't stick too much. Okay, and just finish dusting the top. I like to use this little sieve. And then I'm going to also dust the countertop here. Some extra flour. This is fairly high hydration because there's a fair amount of low protein flour in this. It's not very absorbent. So there's a good potential that it's going to stick. So next step, I'm just going to loosen this from the sides by tucking that in and pulling in. This just loosens it. Okay, so that's nicely loosened. I'm going to turn this over on the countertop in one flip. See how quickly it comes out there. Okay, and again, as I said, I'm going to make this as a Batard. First step, I just like to tuck some of this flour underneath. And then, I'm just going to tidy up this flour, bring it to the side in case I need to flour my fingers. I don't need excessive flour on the rest of the countertop, so just get rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to stretch and fold in towards the center. If possible, if you can, after it's folded in, each side's gonna be folded in kind of like a letter fold. If it's narrower at the top, almost like a triangle, and wider at the bottom, when you then roll it, you'll get a more even roll without the middle part sticking out. Hopefully it'll work out. I'll show you what I mean. So tuck that in, stretch, and fold. So this part is closer to the center than this. I like to give it a little tap and also try to brush off any of this extra flour, which you don't really want. Okay, and the same on this side. Get in underneath, stretch, and fold. You can see how the top now is narrower than the bottom. Again, get rid of any extra flour if you can. Pat it down to get rid of any extra really big bubbles. Get rid of the extra flour. Maybe a little bit under here so you can get your hands under. Okay, so pull and then tuck, tighten it up. If there's too much flour, brush it off, pull, tuck. Again, too much flour, pull, tuck, pull, tuck. So you can see the middle section is not pulling it, sticking out at the ends because of the sort of triangular shape we made. Now I'm just going to tighten it up a little bit with the bench. Just using the friction from the bench and bench scraper or pastry cutter. Forget the name of this all of a sudden. I do like to tidy up the ends, so without too much flour in your hands, tuck that in, and we're going to do a stitch there. If you have too much flour on your hands, this won't work. I'm just going to pinch that in, so that tidies that up. Use a little flour. And the same on this side. Okay, get rid of the extra sticky dough on your hands because there will be some. I'm going to tighten this up a little bit more again. Fairly high hydration for the amount of protein in the flour, so it's starting to relax a little bit. Okay, so now with your banneton near you, I'm going to go back to the sieve, put some extra rice flour on top of this. Make sure there aren't any sticky parts when it goes into the banneton, so that way when you flip it out, it'll come out easily. We're going to roll this on its side and then place it in the banneton. And hopefully one fell swoop, so tuck it over, pick it up, and gently place it in. Now, this was fairly relaxed. It was already starting to relax. So when it starts to relax on the counter, I like to do a little bit of a stitch to give it that extra bit of tension on the surface. So stitching, you grab one side, tuck it in, grab one side, overlap, pinch, one side like that. And we're just grabbing the outside. We're not grabbing deeply into this at all. Okay.